Hi everyone, so here is our guided exercises video lecture. Okay, so I have already my answer as usual para mabilis-bilis ang ating discussion and it will not consume your time. Okay, so we have first, um, if you have your guided exercises, please take a hold of it while we are discussing. So problem 1, it tells you na meron ka daw si ABC ay inacquire all of the assets and liabilities of XYZ. So, binili ni ABC si XYZ. Okay? Given ka ng carrying values ni XYZ and then the fair values ni XYZ. Ngayon, nag-incur ka din daw ng transaction cost amounting to 100,000, okay, for legal and accounting and consultancy fees. So, number 1 tells you paano daw kapag nagbayad ng 1.5 million in cash for considerations, assets, and liabilities ni XYZ, how much daw is the goodwill or bargain purchase gain if meron? So, unang-una mo munang gagawin is you have to determine the fair value of the net assets. Okay, so here, fair value of the net assets. So, ang ginawa ko na is yung mabilisan, which is the fair value of the assets. Exclude ko lang yung goodwill. Okay, so 1.6 yung total as presented. 1.6 million. Ibawas mo lang yung value ng fair value ni goodwill, which is 20,000 kasi unidentifiable asset actually si goodwill. Okay, so makakakuha ka na 1.58 million. Okay, then you less the fair value of the liabilities, which is 400,000. Okay, kasi net assets. Okay, when we say net assets, assets minus liability. So, we have fair value of net identifiable assets acquired, 1,180,000. So, minus mo lang siya. Usually, I do summations kasi ginagawa ko ng negative to para kita ninyong siya ay deduction. Okay? Kasi kapag ginawa kong 1.58 tapos yung value niya dito is minus, hindi magiging adisasal. Kaya summation na lang yung ginagamit ko. Okay? Anyway, gets naman yun. So, we now use the formula given sa atin yung discussion. If you have watched the discussion, I have given the formula. You have consideration transferred plus NCI in the acquiree plus previously held equity interest minus total add and then less fair value of the net identifiable assets. You get pag positive goodwill, pag negative bargain purchase gain. Okay, so we input 1.5 million daw ibinayad ni ABC for all of the assets and liabilities of XYZ. Walang NCI kasi lahat nga binili niya 100%. Walang previously held equity interest because this is a combination ng isang bagsakan. This is not a business combination achieved in stages. Saka lang siya magkakaroon if we have achieved it in stages. However, wala pa naman. So, kasi sa sunod na discussion pa yon. So, we have total of 1.5. Then, less yung kinompute nating fair value, which is the 1,180,000. Okay? So, minus mo lang, you'll get a goodwill of 320,000. Okay? So, let's first look at, although hindi siya required ng problem, tingnan natin kung paano siya gino-journal entry. Okay, in the books of the acquirer, which is ABC Co., you'll first recognize the assets and the acquired assets and liabilities in the business combination. So, for January 1, 20X1, you debit cash in bank kasi yun yung gamit. Cash in bank, hindi lang cash. Receivables, inventory, building, and goodwill. So, yung goodwill, na-compute mo na 320. Okay, so ipasok mo na siya. So, kasama sa purchase mo is the goodwill, and then credit payables, and then cash in bank. Sa cash in bank, pinasok mo na yung ibinayad mong 1.5 million to acquire all of this. Remember that this is in the books of the acquirer. Okay? Hindi lang yon. Kailangan mo mag-journal entry ng nagastos mong professional fees. Okay? We have said acquisition costs are expense. So, we have professional fees expense, that's 100,000. Siyempre, deduct mo siya sa cash in bank kasi wala man sinabing utang siya. So, 100,000. Ma'am, bakit cash in bank? Kasi, in the first place, ang gamit ni acquiree is cash in bank. Then, for para tuloy-tuloy or for consistency, cash in bank. Okay, to record the acquisition related costs. So that's problem 1. Easy peasy. Okay? So next, yan. Meron pa palang additional information. Ito naman ay sa book ni acquiree. Okay, sa book ni acquiree, that's XYZ. Ano ba mangyayari sa kanya? Kasi nabili na siya, it has to liquidate. Okay, liquidation of the business. So, first we determine kung may gain or loss ba. Okay, malamang may gain to kasi 'di ba nga wala naman daw sabi sa paniniwala ng ISB, bargain purchase gain is actually an irregular transaction kasi walang company that will decide to sell their assets at lower than fair value, okay, in a business combination. Okay, so we first look at the gain or loss on disposal of the business. Paano kino-compare? You compare consideration transferred, yung binayad sa kanya na 1.5, and then you compare the carrying amounts, not the fair values, but the carrying amount of the net assets. So you have 1.8 na assets, okay, kasama ang goodwill, minus 400, yung initial goodwill ha, minus 400 na payables, you'll get net assets of 1.5, 1.4, then deduct mo lang, okay, B24 minus B25, you'll get 100,000 gain. Paano siya i-journalize sa books ni acquiree? So, syempre, you have to record the liquidation of the business first. So, you'll get cash on hand. Okay, kasi siya ay naidagdag sa iyo. So, pera mo na siya. Okay, cash on hand is 1.5. Okay, but you have to close the allowance for doubtful accounts and the payables account. You have to close cash in bank, receivables, inventory, building, goodwill, and you have to recognize gain on disposal of business, which is 100,000. Okay, alin lang ba dyan ang kakaiba? This one, the consideration transferred, and this one, gain on disposal of the business. Okay, for this one, this is to record the settlement of the owner's equity. Ma'am, bakit po nagsisettle ng owner's equity? Kasi nabili ka na. You're liquidating. So, malamang ibabalik mo sa iyong mga investors or shareholders yung kanilang part of the share. Ano? Part of the share. Part of their share capital. So, you have this one, you debit to close. You have share capital, which is actually the carrying amount of the net assets, yung na-compute nating 1.4. You recognize also the gain on disposal of business, gain na 100. Then, you credit cash on hand na 1.5 kasi binayaran mo na silang lahat. Ibinalik mo sa kanila lahat. Ano? Okay? So, yun. So, yun lang. Additional information lang. Para familiar kayo how this all happens. Ano? Okay? Now we go to problem 2. Lakang kong. So, sorry naman kung maliit. So, we have case 2. Okay, number 2. We have, ang sabi sa problem is, paano daw kung ang ibinayad sa kanya is ni ABC ay 100,000 lang. Wow, cheap. So, consideration, gamitin natin yung formula. Consideration transferred is 1 million. Walang NCI kasi lahat binili. Walang previously held equity kasi this is achieved in isang bagsakan at hindi in stages. So, we have total 1 million. Nakompute na natin fair value of net identifiable assets kanina na 1.18. You'll get a goodwill, okay, of 180,000. This is actually not goodwill. This is bargain purchase. Okay. Okay. So, yan. So, gain on basta yan na. Okay? Pwede siyang gain on bargain purchase or bargain purchase gain. Okay? Pag negative. Okay, so you have 180. So let's try journalizing it in the books of the acquirer. Again, you recognize the cash in bank na 10, receivables na 120, inventory na 350, building na 11. You recognize payable na 400, then yung consideration transferred na 1 million, and then recognize gain on bargain purchase, which is 180,000. Okay, pinagbenta kasi ni XYZ ang kanyang assets sa 1 million lang. Pero ang value niya talaga is 1,180,000. Siguro ay walang-wala na talaga. Baga sige na. Kesa naman sa walang bumili. Ano? So, yun. So, that ends problem 1. Next, we have problem 2. So, sa problem 2, you have 3 cases. Ano? Isa-isahin natin. So, sa 1, you were asked na, nasaan yun? Okay? Si ABC daw acquired the business for 80%. Si XYZ, okay? In-acquire niya daw 80% ni XYZ. Okay? Then, they did not have sufficient time to market XYZ in multiple potential buyers. So on January 1, 20X1, XYZ's identifiable assets and liabilities have fair values of 1.2 and 400,000 respectively. So binigay na nila yung value. So you just need to deduct 400 with 1, 2 para makuha mo yung net assets. Okay? And then, number 1, case 1. Sabi, ABC co-elects the option to measure NCI at fair value. The independent consultant engaged by ABC Co determined that the fair value of the 20% non-controlling interest in XYZ is 155,000. So, dito madali kasi binigay na yung fair value ni NCI. Okay? Then, nagbayad daw siya ng 1 million for 80% interest in XYZ. Okay? How much is the goodwill on the bargain purchase? Okay? So, binigyan ka na ng fair value ni NCI, okay, then binigyan ka na din ng consideration received for the 80%. Ibig sabihin, for the 80%, ang binayad niya is 1 million. Sinabi naman ano. So, ang kukunin daw is goodwill. So, let's again use the formula given. Okay, consideration transferred. Nagbayad siya 1 million. NCI in the acquiree, they have elected to use fair value. Okay, so binigay naman, the fair value of the NCI is 155,000. This is the minority, ano, yeah, this is the minority in the company. Previously held equity, wala pa rin. Then you just add the two. 1 million plus 155 is 1,155,000. Then less the value of net identifiable assets acquired. Ma'am, paano nakuha ang 800,000? Given ka naman ng 1,200,000 na assets minus 400,000 na liabilities. That's your net identifiable assets acquired. Okay? So, you just deduct the total less fair value. You'll get a goodwill of 355,000. Paano journalize in the books of the acquiree? So, dahil hindi naman in-enumerate kung ano yung mga biniling assets, edi lagay mo na lang net assets acquired or assets acquired, sorry. Assets acquired na 1.2. Then you have goodwill of 355. Yun na-compute natin. Okay? Kasi asset ang goodwill, so naka-debit. Liabilities assumed, the 400. And then cash in bank. Okay? Kasi nagbayad si acquirer na 1 million, nabawasan na siya. And then, syempre, NCI in the acquiree, 155. Okay? So, naka-debit, naka-credit siya. Okay? Okay. So, sabi dito, the non-controlling interest is presented in the consolidated statement of financial position within equity but separate from the equity of the owners of ABC. So, sa equity portion siya pinapresent pero dapat separate siya with the equity ng parent. So, nakahiwalay siya. Okay? So, next. Number 2. So, number 2 naman, sabi, ABC Co elects the option to measure an NCI at fair value. The value of 250 as assigned to the non-controlling interest in XYZ. The consideration transferred is 1 million. How much is the goodwill? Okay. So, dito, pwede mo actually i-compute si 250,000. Although given na siya, pwede mo pa rin siyang i-extract. Bakit? Kasi nga, nagbayad daw, hindi naman sinabi na yung 1 million is actually for the 80%. You just, hindi siya kagaya ni number 1 na explicitly sinabi na yung 1 million is for the 80%. Okay, dito, kakaiba. Okay, sinabi lang niya. So, because we know na 80% yung pinapurchase niya, malamang yung 1 million is for 80%. Okay, ma'am, bakit niyo ba inuulit? Wala lang, para alam niyo lang na there are certain problems na hindi sinasabi sa iyo na na the transferred amount is for the percentage na bibilhin niya. Kasi minsan, dire-diretso ka hindi mo alam 80% lang pala or 20% lang. So, for the 70% lang yung amount na yon. So, you have to be careful. Okay? So, 1 million siya dahil siya 80%. Okay? Kunwari, hindi mo alam na 250,000 ang NCI. Pwede mong gawin yung ating technique. Now, how do you get from 80 to 100, you divide 1 million by 80, you'll get 1,250,000. Okay, yan, kita nyo naman sa formula bar. Okay, dinivide ko siya ng 0.8. Then, you just squeeze this. 1.25 minus 1 million is 250,000. NCI in the acquiring. So, pwedeng ganyan. Okay? So, yan. Wala lang, pinakita ko lang. Okay, so let's do the computation. You have consideration transferred of 1 million. You have NCI in the acquiry. Sinabi naman sa problem na 250,000. Okay, previously held, wala pa rin. You just total the two. 1 million plus 250 is 1.250. Then less fair value of the net identifiable assets na 800,000. You'll get goodwill of 450,000. Okay, madali lang. Ma'am, sana all ganyan lagi sa exam. Okay, sana all. Okay, let's proceed to number 3. Sabi sa number 3, the additional information, you have, dito naman, ang ABC elects the option to measure NCI at proportionate share in the net assets. Okay, so, nagbayad daw siya ng 1 million for the interest acquired in XYZ. Okay, so dito iba, hindi na siya at fair value. Ngayon, we have to compute for NCI based on the proportionate share in the net assets. Okay, so first, we look at the fair value of the identifiable assets. Although na-compute na natin kanina, we have 1.2. Fair value of the liabilities assumed minus 400,000. You'll get a fair value of the net assets acquired na 800,000. From there, sa 800,000, you just multiply NCI by 20%. Okay? Ma'am, bakit 20? Kasi ang binibili ni ABC is 80%. So, that's majority. Ano yung NCI? Di ba yun yung minority interest? So, 100 minus 80 is 20%. That's the NCI. Ano? So, 20%, multiply mo lang 800,000 times 0.20%. You have NCI's proportionate share na 160,000 pesos. Okay? So, we now compute consideration transferred, 1 million. NCI in the acquiry, 160,000. Yun na-compute natin kanina. Previously held, wala pa rin. You just add 1,160,000. Then less fair value of the net identifiable assets na 800, you'll get goodwill of 360,000. Okay? Madali lang. You just have to follow the flow, okay, of the problem kung siya ba ay at fair value or based on proportionate shares in the net assets. Pag proportionate share, you have to compute for the fair value of the net assets acquired, multiply mo lang yung percentage in NCI, then makukuha mo na yung NCI's proportionate share in the assets. Okay? So, yan. So, that ends problem 2. We now go to problem 3. Problem 3 is all about how to deal with acquisition costs and share issuance costs. Okay. Number 1, it deals with dalawa. You have the acquisition cost and then the share issuance cost. First, we solve the problem muna kasi binigyan ka pa rin ng given na ABC acquired all of the identifiable assets. Okay, assets acquired is 1.6 million and liabilities is 900,000. ABC incurred the following acquisition-related costs: legal fees 10, due diligence costs 100, general administrative cost of maintaining internal acquisition department is 20,000. Okay, number 1, additional information is the consideration for the business of ABC co-transferred 8,000 of its own equity instruments with par of 100 and fair value of 125. XYZ's former owners. Cost of registering the shares amounted to 40,000. What is the goodwill or bargain purchase option? Okay, so let's compute. Compute muna natin to. Okay, using the formula given. So, consideration transferred. We all know that when shares are involved, okay, fair value ang gamit in getting the consideration transferred. Okay, so we have 8,000 shares na binigay or ginamit na pangbili ni ABC, that 8,000, you'll get the fair value per share. That's 125. Multiply it, you'll get a total consideration of 1 million. NCI in the acquiry is 0. Okay, kasi lahat binili niya, so walang NCI. Previously held equities, wala pa rin. Total of 1 million. Okay? Next, you get the net identifiable assets, fair value. Given naman na 1.6 ang assets, ang liab is 900, you'll get 700,000. Okay, then you just deduct 1 million from 700, you'll get goodwill of 300,000. Okay, how do you record journal entries? Okay, so first, we look at, ba't kailangan nila assets? Yan. Assets acquired na 1.6 debit, goodwill, which is yung na-compute natin na 300,000. Okay, debit, liabilities assumed, 900,000. Okay, then ito, because you have si ABC, ang binigay niya is shares, you have to recognize share capital, which is 8,000 shares times 100 par value, because we all know that share capital and valuation ng shares is always at par. Okay, so 800,000. Ma'am, paano yung sobra? Siyempre, yung sobra, papasok siya sa share premium na 125, the fair value, minus 100 na par, you'll get 25 pesos na premium times 8,000, you'll get 200,000 na premium. Okay, this is to record the issuance of shares as consideration for the business. Okay, next in line is we have to record also sa cost ng equity transaction. The standard tells us that the cost of issuance or the of equity instruments or the share issuance cost will always be deducted sa equity part, especially sa share premium or additional paid in capital. Okay, kung meron, kung wala, retained earnings, and just make sure na may disclosure. Okay, so dito meron tayong share premium. Okay, so sa share premium natin siya ipasok by debiting share premium, which is a deduction, 40,000. Okay, and then credit cash in bank, 40,000 kasi pinambayad mo. 40, ay, it's in cash. Okay, so that's for the cost of equity transaction. How about for the acquisition related cost? It is expense immediately. Okay, so hindi siya kine-carry over sa computation ng goodwill. Okay, expense immediately. So you have professional fees, dalawa. You have the legal and the due diligence cost. So 110,000 siya pag pinag-add mo. Then we have general administrative cost of 20,000. You have debit cash in bank na 130,000 kasi hindi naman sinabing utang. Okay, that's how you record. Pansin niyo, hindi niya naapektuhan yung computation of the goodwill. Okay, so yun. Next, number 2. Okay, so number 2, additional information is that as consideration of the business combination, ABC issued bonds with face amount and fair value of 1 million. Transaction costs incurred in issuing the bonds amounted to 50,000. How much is the goodwill? Dito naman, ang distinct niya is, you have issued a debt instrument, as in debt, D-E-B-T, debt instrument. This is the bonds payable. So let's compute first the goodwill. So we have consideration transferred, nagbigay ng, nag-issue ng debt securities, which is valued at fair value na 1 million. Okay, 1 million ha. Then NCI, 0. Previously held equity, 0. So you have total of 1 million. Then less fair value of net assets, identifiable assets, 700. You'll get goodwill of 300,000. Okay. Now, how do you record this? You record this by debiting assets acquired, 1.6, goodwill, yung na-compute natin na 300,000, and discount on bonds payable. Ma'am, saan galing? That's the cost of issuing the bonds. Okay, ma'am, ba't hindi sinama dito? Standard tells us that consideration transferred is always at the fair value of the instrument. Okay, of the financial instruments transferred. Okay, kaya hindi mo siya i-deduct. So, dito, magre-recognize ka ng discounts on bonds payable na 50,000, which is the cost of issuing that debt securities. Sa liabilities assumed, we have 900,000. Siyempre, recognize bonds payable na 1 million. Okay, and then cash in bank na 50,000. Ma'am, para saan yung cash in bank? Siyempre, nagbayad, parang deduction, dahil nga nagbayad ka for the issuance of the debt instrument, cash in bank, 50,000. Okay, so yan. Tanan. Yan, nilagay ko naman dito. Cost to issue debt securities are included in the initial measurement of the liability, but in the computation of goodwill, the fair value of debt securities issued without deduction from transaction costs are used. So, yun lang. I hope this is all clear. This is the basics. Okay, ma'am, magano ka naman ng mas mahirap-hirap. Yun naman is activities natin na ginagawa, ano. So, yon. If you have questions, kindly ask me, ha? Okay, yun lang naman. Bye-bye!